I know you're judging me over there. Just hanging out. She's in the bag for the green screen.
The time has come, the walrus said.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the extra part for Pokemon Generation 4. Or more specifically Pearl in our case, because that's what we played. But today we're going to be looking at some of the post-game content of Pokemon Pearl, as well as the special third version of Generation 4 that was released a few years later. Immediately after beating the Elite Four, entering the Hall of Fame, and reloading your save, you're brought back home, where your mother tells you about Barry, who awaits you at a boat in Snowpoint City. This takes you to the main bulk of the post-game content in Generation 4, which is essentially equivalent to the Battle Frontier in Hoenn. It's a big tower where you gotta fight a whole bunch of trainers. There's some new named characters here and there. It's interesting. But considering you have to do 21 battles in a row to unlock the fight with this guy, no thank you. This is Generation 4, remember. The battles are slow as hell. Also, for some reason after 7 fights, which 7 fights took a while, it just stopped on me for some reason. I don't know why. I don't quite get how that whole mechanic works, but it's important to visit this island for the next thing on our agenda, which is all of the Legendaries in Generation 4. Gen 4 has a lot of Legendaries, and it does all sorts of different kinds of things with the Legendaries. You know, in Generation 1, they were mostly just static encounters in one specific spot. In Gen 2, they added roaming Legendaries. In Gen 3, they tried to do a mix of that and add in some puzzle-based ones. Gen 4 has just got all of it. Oh, and of course, there's also the story-based Legendaries who appear in the box art. That was started in Gen 3, and it's continued here in Gen 4. As you know from watching the Let's Play, we encounter either Palkia or Dialga in the main game. But the first legendary trio that immediately presents itself is the Lake Trio. These three who appeared in the story and are kind of like the Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno of this generation in a way. They're static encounters with the exception of Mesprit, as when you visit Mesprit, Mesprit then teleports off and becomes a roaming legendary, just like Latios or Latias, or say Raikou, Entei, or Suicune. But Uxie and Azelf are just static encounters who you can find here, and I may have accidentally killed them, ignore that. I'm not too worried about that. Well, I'm not a huge fan of the Lake Trio, what can I say, but they have their fans, I'll recognize that. I mean, I should know that much because my Solog partner Game, his favorite Pokemon is Mesprit. Speaking of Mesprit, let's cover how we can find Mesprit, the roaming legendary. It's actually easier to find Mesprit than any other roaming legendary in any other generation. See, if we actually head back to the Poketch headquarters and talk to the main guy at the desk, he's gonna give us these applications, including one just for tracking Mesprit, and that makes it so much easier to find Mesprit. Especially if you have Pokemon that's around level 50 and you throw in a Repel, you're just guaranteed gonna find this thing. Of course, you would also need some sort of ability to keep it in the battle, like, say, Mean Look. I didn't have that, so I just threw a ball and prayed. And what do you know, it worked. I caught it on the first try. So, in honor of my Solog buddy, I'm naming this thing Ian. I know typically I name these after singers, but you know what, if you didn't see his musical number at the last Among Us Snap video, then go check it out now. But actually, besides the story legendaries and the Lake Trio, those are the only ones you can get for now. The next step in order to get any of the other legendaries is to completely fill out the Pokedex. Now don't worry, that doesn't mean catching everything in the Pokedex, but it means at least seeing everything, all 150 Pokemon currently available in the Pokedex. For the story legendary you can encounter in your version, in our case Dialga, all you gotta do is go to Celestic Town and talk to Cynthia's grandmother, and she'll actually fill the dex entry for you. It's kind of interesting. I like that they thought of that. Technically, the original Sinnoh Pokedex has 151 Pokemon if we can get Manaphy, but Manaphy is only obtained through a spin-off game called Pokemon Raiders, so I don't have any way of doing that with the emulator. But now that we filled out the Pokedex, there's a few more areas that are open up to us, and of course this means that more Pokemon are available. First, of course, we gotta go back to Sandgem City and meet with Professor Oak, returning from Kanto. It's cool seeing him again. And as he gives us the National Pokedex, we can now find all sorts of interesting Pokemon in some of these previously locked-off areas. Like I mentioned on the Battle Tower Island, there was some path you couldn't go on before because you didn't have the National Dex, but now that you can go there, you can find a whole bunch of interesting things. Things you wouldn't have been able to find otherwise, like Vibrava, or...
Remember me, Jockey?
He's back. But more importantly, you can now access some of these areas. So on the Battle Frontier Island, there actually is a new legendary here. You gotta go all the way up to the top of the island and head to the cave, where you and the new character Buck are gonna go through and eventually find this magma rock, and you'll get it and then he'll leave. Then you gotta go all the way back to his house in a different town on that same island, talk to his father who'll be like, yeah, sorry, he has to put the gem back. Apparently he disturbed a Pokemon or something. You talk to him again, he says he'll go put it back, and the next time you go to that cave, without any cutscene or explanation, suddenly there's a legendary there. Sure. It's kind of back and forth, and I don't love this whole process, especially since this island's pretty damn tough to get through. But this is for the legendary Pokemon Heatran. It's one of the only fire types in all of Generation 4, and you have to get it post-game after filling out literally the rest of the Sinnoh Dex. But it's a pretty cool Pokemon nonetheless, and I just killed it. Whoops. Alright, moving on. Next up we gotta talk about Giratina. Giratina is a mysterious and kind of scary Pokemon they throw in this generation. See, we gotta go back on Route 214 and head to this area we couldn't before we had the National Dex, and head into this mysterious cave that I believe is called the Turnback Cave. I'm trying to remember, but I think it is. And the Turnback Cave is a good description because it's filled with fog, creepy atmosphere, and you need to find your way through this maze-like structure, which is literally randomly generated. Basically, in order to get to Giratina, you have to find 3 of these inscription totems along the way, which I just happened to do by chance in the first time. But when you get here, you've got Giratina. He's horrific. I will say, something I love about Generation 4 is that this is when the Pokemon lore really began to grow and flourish. And people have a fan theory that Giratina is like the Pokemon version of the devil. I mean, we have Pokemon like Palkia and Dialga who created space and time, as well as another mythical Pokemon I'll get to later. And then there's Giratina here, who's this dark, hidden figure with 6 wings, 6 spikes on his body, and 6 legs. I'll also be getting back to Giratina regarding the special 3rd version, but for now, he's just here in Generation 4. Also, I accidentally killed him, as you can see. I don't know, enough accidentally killing legendaries, let's go after one of my favorites in this game, Regigigas. So I love the Regis. If you watch the Generation 3 playthrough, I might have said this already in the extra part, but the Regis are my favorite legendaries in the Pokemon game. And you actually need all 3 of the Regis from the previous game in your party in order to access this. It's in Snow Point City at the mysterious building at the top of the town. Now that we've beaten the Elite Four and have the National Dex, the gym leader Candace will actually let us go through, and once inside, we can head all the way down where there's this mysterious statue of a Pokemon. Now, if you have Regice and Registeel and Regirock in your party, then Regigigas awakens and you're in a battle. He's got this interesting ability called Slow Start, which means he's so strong as a legendary Pokemon that they had to nerf him with his own ability, meaning for the first few turns his speed and his attack are halved. But eventually, once he's fast and strong, you're fucked. Now luckily here, I kind of just relied on him using all of his superpowers, which lowered his attack harshly so many times that it reached a certain point where Regirock could just tank hits, and I threw balls and I caught him! I finally got this guy. I got a legendary aside from Mesprit. And looking back at the previous Let's Plays, I of course had Bobby as in Bobby Darin in the first Let's Play, Bobby as in Bobby McFerrin in the third, so I had to have another Bobby here. So Bobby V, welcome to the team. Now there are a number of other legendaries in Generation 4. Actually, it might have the most legendaries in any game up to this point. Darkrai, I already mentioned Manaphy and the Fion you can get out of it, which is a whole other thing. There's Shaman, there's Arceus, there's Cresselia. Most, if not all of these legendaries are pretty much impossible to access these days. Things like Shaman and Arceus were just one-time events that are no longer accessible, sadly, so you can get him in a randomizer, I guess. And the Pokemon Arceus, by the way, is said to be the creator of the Pokemon world, so that adds to the whole Giratina theory of a creator and a devil. But alright, speaking of Giratina, we need to get into the 3rd version of the game, because just like Generations 1, 2, and 3 in a way, there's a 3rd version after the initial Diamond and Pearl. There's Platinum version. And Platinum version is a lot of people's favorite, and honestly the best way to play Generation 4. It improves so many things. The game is faster now. You have a new sprite. The Poketch has a new sprite. There's new story beats. It makes Barry seem like less of an irredeemable asshole. Team Galactic is more involved and their plan makes more sense. There's a new character named Looker and all sorts of other new story beats. All of this is new awesome things you encounter in the first 30 minutes. I haven't even begun with all of the awesome other additions like gym revamps, which is a huge deal in many cases, or like the main legendary encounter, which has been completely revamped and I didn't have time to get to in my quick playthrough of the game, but just know that Pokemon Platinum really changes things up for the better. So personally, if you're going to play Generation 4, even beyond the more modern remakes, and certainly above Diamond and Pearl, I would recommend playing Platinum. That's my own thoughts. I want to know your guys' thoughts as well in the comments section down below on Pokemon Generation 4, where Diamond and Pearl stand, where Platinum stands, your thoughts on these legendaries and some of these encounters. I really do want to hear it, because a lot of these encounters, like say the Giratina one or the Heatran one, it was my first time doing this sort of thing, so it's kind of a new experience for me, and I had a lot of fun with it, but I'm still kind of a novice when it comes to Generation 4. I've only played the games a couple times. And one of my playthroughs of Generation 4 was one where I hacked in a bunch of level 100 Carnivines. And that was my first ever video I uploaded on my old YouTube channel 6 years ago. Man. You know, that means that this channel is coming up on its 5-year anniversary next month. I think there'll be some special things in store for August, but in the meantime, thanks so much for watching as always, and have yourself a very good day. Take care.